Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our institution, the Institute of Global Professionals. And welcome to an international free webinar. To our lovely audience, thank you all for joining in this wonderful evening. Today, I am your host for the evening, Miss Tel, Faculty Development Personnel from the Philippines. My dear audience, I am delighted to tell you all that I am grateful to be part with IGP's endeavor. I feel honored and privileged to be your host in this webinar. In this marvelous evening, it is my pleasure and humble request to all our viewers to stay with us till the end of this webinar, for I am sure we will have important takeaways from this meeting. Each time, you are welcome to like and comment in our webinar, and don't forget to tag, share, mention your friends in the comment box. So, let's watch and learn together because we believe that power is gained by sharing knowledge, not hoarding it. Once again, I'm Miss Tel from Philippines, faculty development personnel, a core volunteer, a mother, a student, and hopeful to be awarded a lifetime member of IGP. That would be an honor. Every day, new participants join us. So, before starting our program, let me tell you all about IGP. So, the Institute of Global Professionals' mission is to empower not just our youth, but all people through enhancing everyone's learning. IGP serves students and community resource, providing a holistic social work and education to create a proficient generation. IGP is a leading online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. We are entrusted with international standard of recognition. We make it get at able to use every knowledge seeker to originate a personality that is more determined, to have ambition, confident to face any circumstance, and developed on skills. The Institute of Global Professionals is an educational institution that provides social work heartily, and we believe that it's not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal education. So, we provide effective training and consultation to create proficient generation all over the world. We organized our webinars, trainings, offline and online courses with our best trained speakers and coaches from all over the world to produce a best learning platform for you all. With that, we have already completed 181 previous webinars successfully, and we expect that everybody will benefit in this webinar. We wish you will be with us in this journey till the end. And let me remind you again, don't forget to mention your friends, share, tag, comment in the comment box because your support encourages us to do better in providing the best service to our lovely audience tonight. Again, a warm welcome to you all. And today, let's start our program with IGP's mantra, Feed Your Skills, with our 182nd webinar entitled Research Methodology and Literature Review. At this moment, I would like to introduce our first speaker. A short introduction, of course, because he's going to introduce herself. He's a peer reviewer of the National Journal of Linguistics Amakrithink Institute and is Secretariat of the Southeast Asian Research Academy. Let's all welcome Sir Felix E. Arcilia Jr., our licensed professional teacher of MACDDS. Good evening, sir. Welcome, sir.
Okay, good evening and IGP and good evening everyone. Okay, but before that, I will show first my screen.
Thank you, sir. The viewer is yours.
Okay, can you see now my screen?
Yes, sir. We can see it.
Okay, good evening everyone. I am Mr. Felix E. Arcila Jr., a licensed professional teacher and a graduate of Master of Arts in Curriculum Design, Development, and Supervision at St. Paul University, Manila. So this is my RCID number, my ResearchGate account, and the Web of Science Researcher ID. And then I have also account in Academia Research and also Google Scholar. So you can search my name in Google Scholar. Okay, my topic is about research methodology. So what do you mean by research methodology? Okay, research methods versus methodology. So what do you mean by research methods? Methods are Research methods are the methods that the researcher adapts for conducting the research study. So in other words, it is a technique used by the researcher or adapts. How about research methodology? It is the way in which research problems are solved systematically. It is the science of studying how research is conducted scientifically. So in other words, it is the processes or the methods that we're going to use in conducting the study. Okay, methodology is the specific procedures or techniques used to identify, select, process, and analyze information about a topic. For example, in your methodology in your chapter 3 of your research, so you can see the research design, research locale, research respondents, research instrument, data gathering procedure, ethical standard, and also statistical treatment. So that's an example of methodology. Okay, research methods in qualitative research. For this evening, we have quantitative and qualitative research methods. Okay.
Oh, we are having a technical problem. Sir, we will wait again for your screen share. Everybody, don't forget to like, comment on the comment box, and share with your friends and community. While waiting for Sir Felix Arcelia. Okay, everyone is going to have a free e-certificate at the end of this session. So don't forget to mention your friends. Share it with Facebook, YouTube, and any other platform or social media you have. Share it with your friends and family to join us to keep learning because I believe everybody and every session that we will be having, we're going to have new learnings. That is every day, every night with IGP. So, support us. Share this live in your community, in your social media, and invite your friends in this live webinar. I am really excited about learning about research methodology tonight because this is new for me and I want to be I want to learn more about this topic. So if you have questions later on, you can write it down now so that you can address it to our speakers later on question and answer portion. So once again, share this live in your community. Okay, I think Sir Felix is here already. Welcome once again, Sir Felix.
Okay, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. So my connection was lost, but I'm back now.
Yes, sir, you can have the floor once again. Okay, here we
Okay.
go.
Okay, we have research methods in qualitative research. Okay, qualitative research is the process of acquiring data by studying subjects in their natural habitat. The focus is on understanding the way and how of human behavior in situations is defined as scientific research method to obtain non-numerical data. So in qualitative research, so we need to do an interview to determine the experiences or the challenges of our participants. So that is qualitative research. So it is non-numerical data. And also, qualitative research is subjective in nature. Methods are designed to understand the lives of the participants. So we need to understand their experiences, their challenges. Next is the process is maintained on neutral lines without placing judgment on individual responses. So upon doing interview, so based on the participants' response, so we need to listen to them and then don't judge them. And as a researcher, we focus on the areas of culture, societies, and individuals. Okay, types of qualitative research methods. The first one is ethnography. So what do you mean by ethnography? Ethnography are one of the most popular methods of qualitative research. Involves the researcher embedding himself or herself into the daily life and routine of the subjects, either is an active participant or an observer. The researcher experiences their customs, traditions, mannerisms, reactions to situations, etc. firsthand, sometimes for years. Geographical constraint could be a hindrance for the researcher. So in ethnography, so as a researcher in conducting ethnography research, so we need to what? Um, we need to experience also their customs. We need to abide the rules and regulations, their traditions, and also mannerisms, especially if we conduct our research in, for example, that in a tribe, in a culture, in a particular culture. Okay, example and application for ethnography. This on-the-field method can help companies in assessing how customers use certain products or services, and accordingly, develop new products or revamp existing products. So in other words, in ethnography, so we can assess how the customers use that particular product or services. So that is a form of ethnography because we study their culture. So what are their culture regarding the specific company? Okay, how to do ethnography research? So there are steps that we need to follow in conducting ethnography research. First, identify research questions. So why we need to understand research questions? Because research questions are the what? Center of science. Questions are the center of science. We need to determine what problem you are seeking to better understand. Develop a problem statement that raises questions you seek know more about. The problem or question may be about nearly any topic that addresses people in a designated environment. You'll be wishing to better understand things like culture, relationships, interactions, processes, or anything else that affect how people think or behave. So first is we need to identify our research questions. Next, we need to determine the locations for research. So where we want to conduct our research, in what place, in what country. So that is the second. Identify the best place to conduct the participatory research. You may choose more than one location of the research. And you can also select a location that will provide the best opportunity to observe and participate, take field notes, and understand how the people in the environment act, communicate, and think. Okay, next is formulate presentation method. So what do you mean by formulate presentation method? Consider the most ways to obtain objective information. Will you be adapting a role of a person in the community organization you are observing? Will you be covered or will others know you are conducting a research? Recognize that if others know you are a researcher, they maybe act and respond differently. If they don't know, on the other hand, consider the most ethical way to observe and collect data. So in conducting research, so we need to observe the ethical standard of research and we need to follow the procedure or processes. Okay, number four, acquire permissions and access. Okay, because ethnographic research can be a bit intrusive, it's usually necessary to obtain permission for access. So just like what we did in our ethnography research, so we wrote a letter to the NCIP head and also the dato of that particular tribe. The Talaandig tribe, one of the 7 tribes of Bukidnon. Okay, next is observe and participate. So we need to observe their culture. We need to go. We need to go to their place, observe and participate of their traditions and customs. Next is after observation. So that's the time we will do an interview based on the observation that we have. Okay, next, collect and archival of data. So after interview, so we need to collect our data, transcribe, and interpret. Next is code and analyze the data. What are the common themes? So um, what are the things that we need to analyze or or regroup the data? So those are the steps in conducting ethnography research. Okay, we'll proceed to the next. So the second one is the narrative research. So what do you mean by narrative? In a narrative method of qualitative research, the researcher gathers data or facts from one or two subjects through interviews, documents, and etc. Over a period of time based on a theme, these are then pieced together, not necessarily in the same sequence, to derive answers and suggestions. So in a narrative method, so we need also to do an interview. The example of application. A business can use this method to understand challenges faced by their target audience that can in turn be utilized for innovation and development of products. So for example, in a company, so we need to what? We need to understand, we need to determine what are the challenges faced by our target audience or our clients or our participants. So that is a form of narrative research. Okay, what are the steps in conducting narrative research? First, identify a problem or phenomenon to explore. Identifying an issue or concern provides the purpose for a study and enables the researcher to understand personal or social experiences of an individual. First, so we need to identify what are our problems. Next, select one or more participants to study. Many narrative studies may be studied as well. Select an individual who can provide understanding of the issue. So make sure that your participants can relate to your problem or to your topic or to your research. Next, collect the story from the participant. So you need to collect their story, you need to hear them, and you need to write them. Next is restore or retell the individual story. So after collecting, so you need to retell it again, and then collaborate with the participants or the storyteller. So you need to collaborate to your participants. Next is write a story about the participants' experiences or challenges based on your title. The last step is validate the report's accuracy. So we need to validate if the data are correct or not. So we need to validate that one. We need to triangulate. Okay, types of qualitative research methods. The third one is phenomenology. So what do you mean by phenomenology? Okay, phenomenology is a qualitative research method is used to study an event or activity as it happens from various angles. You can use interviews, videos, on-site visit, or etc. You can add on to existing information using perspectives and insights from the participants themselves about the activity or event. It is a primarily an experience-based research method. Again, it is an experience or perception-based research method. So that's why we also conduct interview to know what are their perceptions. Example of application. Universities can rely on this method to understand how students make their choices about applying to universities or colleges. So as a researcher, we need to understand, we need to determine how the students feel or make their choices about applying to a university or colleges. So as a researcher, that's our goal is to understand or to determine. So that is phenomenology. Okay, these are the procedure in conducting phenomenology. First, you need to choose your topic and then perform bracketing interview. So that is self-ask focus. And then you need to interview your participants. That is participant as focus. And then you need to transcribe your interview. So under transcribe and interviews, we have read for meaning units, read for sense of whole, that is hermeneutic. And then we have cluster initial thematic meaning, develop thematic structure, present structure to research group, report findings to the participants, and then finally, prepare the final report. So after all these things, so at the end, so you need to prepare the final report for the research community as a focus. So that is those are the parts of procedure in conducting phenomenology. Okay, next is number 4, grounded theory. So what do you mean by grounded theory? Okay, grounded theory starts with a question or collection of data through systematic data collection and analysis. It is a repetitive ideas or elements are coded and codes are grouped or categorized. New theories may be formed based on this category. So in grounded theory, so you need to produce a what theory, another theory. Example of application. A product-based company can use this method to understand how their customer use their products or individual features of their product or product. So as a researcher, we need to what? We need to understand how the customers use our products or the individual features of that particular product. So that is the goal of a researcher is to understand how the customers use how. in what way they are going to use that particular product. So the process of grounded theory. According to Bernard, the grounded theory process is deceptively simple. First, we need to produce a transcript of interviews and read through all sample of a text. Next is to identify potential analytic categories, that is potential themes that arise. So what would be the possible themes based on the interview that you have? And then as the categories emerge, pull together all the data from those categories and compare them. So need to compare and contrast. So if they are similar or not, if this words or statement belongs to this category or not. Number 4, consider how categories are linked together. If they are similar or they have relationship, so you can consider that one. Okay, number 5, use the relations among categories to build theoretical models. So that's the time you will build your own theory or models. Constantly checking the models against data, especially against negative cases. So after the data has been coded or linked together, so that's the time you can build theoretical models. You can build your own theory. You can generate your own theory. And then present the results of the analysis using quotes from interviews that illuminate the theory. You can quote a particular statement from your participants to support the theory or to support your theory. Okay, next is the types of qualitative research methods. Number 5 is the case study. So what do you mean by case study? The case study method is used to gather in-depth and detailed information about a subject. So it is a detailed information. This, this is in-depth understanding of a particular case, which could be any entity, organization, event, or something larger like a country. The nature of this qualitative research method can be explanatory or exploratory. So what do you mean by explanatory? Explanatory case studies aim to answer how or why questions. So in an explanatory, it aims to answer why and how questions. How about exploratory? It aims to um, in a case in an exploratory case studies, it aims to answer the what and who questions. Again, the explanatory it aims to answer how and why, but in exploratory, it aims to answer what and who. Example of application. For a business, case studies are useful tool to formulate strategies, understand influences, devise new methods, and etc. So this is now the goal of a researcher. What to you can formulate objective out from that case study, and also we need to understand the influences. So what are the possible influences of that particular topic? And also we can devise new method based on our research, or based on our data. Okay, how to do a case study? First, the step 1 is we need to select a case. So what would be our case? What would be our problem? Once you have developed a problem, statement, and research questions, you should be ready to choose the specific case that you want to focus on. A good case study should have the potential to what? First, provide new or unexpected insights into the subject, challenge or complicate existing assumptions and theories, propose practical courses and action to resolve the problem. So as a researcher, we need to propose what a practical course of action to solve that particular case or problem, and then open up new directions for future research. For this title, so what will the future research regarding this title? Next is build a theoretical framework. So why we need to build a theoretical framework in a case study? While case studies focus more on concrete details than general theories, they should usually have some connection with theory in the field. So what the theory that you are going to use? This way, the case study is not just an isolated description, but it is integrated into existing knowledge about the topic. It might aim to exemplify a theory, or by showing how, it might aim to explain the case study under investigation. And also, you can expand a theory by exploring an outlier case that doesn't fit with established assumptions. Okay, to ensure that your analysis of the case has a solid academic grounding, you should conduct a what? A literature review. So what does the literature review tells regarding the particular case? So what have you read regarding this particular topic? Okay, next is to collect your data. So there are many different research methods you can use to collect data on your subject. Case studies tend to focus on the qualitative data using methods such as interviews. Yes, we can have an interview in a case study, and also observation, and also analysis in primary and secondary records or sources. For example, newspaper articles, photographs, official records. Sometimes a case study will also collect quantitative data. So there is also numerical data involved in a case study, but not all. The next is describe and analyze the case. In writing the case study, you need to bring together all the relevant aspects to complete a picture as possible of the subject. How you will report your findings? You need to bring together all the relevant aspects to give as complete a picture as possible of the subject. How you will report your findings depends on the type of research you are going to use. Some case studies are structured like a standard scientific paper or thesis with separate sections or chapters for the methods, results, and discussion. So in a case study, they have also separate chapter from, for example, from the research methods and then results and discussion. Others are written in more narrative style, aiming to explore the case from various angles and analyze its meanings and implications, for example, by using textual analysis or discourse analysis. So it's part of case study. How about research methods in quantitative research? I guess we only have five methods in qualitative research. Okay, move on. So let's proceed to the survey research. For quantitative research. Okay, survey research is the most elementary tool for all sorts of quantitative research techniques. I guess this is very common in conducting research in quantitative. So we need to use survey questionnaire. So we have rating scale from 1 to 5. So we use Likert scale, for example, in our survey research. The very most important purpose of the research is to what? Widely explain the characteristics of a particular group or a bunch of population. This analysis is most typically employed by both small and large organizations for a proper understanding of their customers and to understand the merchandise and product reviews. Okay, this is survey research. Okay, survey research is a research method used for collecting data from predefined groups of respondents to gain information, insights into various topics of interest. So in a survey research, so you need to identify who will be your respondents in your survey research. You need to identify how many of them, and also the sampling technique. And then in survey research, in quantitative, in survey research, multiple queries can be raised by the customers and the analysis can be done for the same time. For example, you have a lot of factors. So you can raise that one by just letting your respondents answer that questionnaire. You can raise your queries multiple for that particular time. Next, the cross-sectional and longitudinal are the two main kinds of surveys that can be used to conduct the survey quantitative research analysis. You can use cross-sectional. Okay, the cross-sectional survey is conducted specifically on a target population at a given purpose of time. This type of surveys are used to conduct research mostly in a retail stores, healthcare trade, and etc. Okay, this is for cross-sectional. Okay, next is the longitudinal survey. Research is conducted at various time durations. These are utilized in medicine and applied sciences. For longitudinal survey, so these are utilized for what? Only medicine and applied sciences. But for cross-sectional, these are utilized by mga healthcare professionals and healthcare trade, or even the retail stores. Okay, the next one is the descriptive research. Okay, descriptive research seeks to explain the current status of an identified variable. So what are your variables? You have dependent and independent variables of your study. So what are the factors? So that the aim of descriptive research is to what? Is to explain and interpret the current status of people, settings, conditions, or events. For example, factors affecting the academic performance. Okay, you need to what? You need to identify what are your variables. So what are those factors? So you need to identify. In descriptive research, the researcher does not usually begin with a hypothesis. However, it is probably going to develop one after collecting the information. So you need to survey first, and also a systematic assortment of data needs careful selection of the units and measurement of every variable. So for this variable, so what statistical treatment that you are going to use? Are you going to use, for example, frequency and percentage, regression analysis? So you can do that one. And also description of the extent to which elementary teachers use math manipulative. So these are some of the examples. For example, description of global warming with respects to scientists, description of different kinds of physical activities that occur in schools, and etc. are all examples of descriptive research. So these are all example of what? Descriptive research. Okay, next is let's proceed to the experimental research. Experimental research in quantitative research. As the name suggests, it is usually based on one or more theories. It is based on one or more than one theory. It is called through experimentation. You can use experimentation, uses the scientific method to establish the cause and effect relationship among groups of variables that make up a study. For example, in your study, you have independent and dependent variables. So what are the cause and what are the causes and what are the effects? So you can identify that one. And also multiple theories can be used to conduct this research. So you can do multiple theories in your framework. The components of the experimental research design are prescribed below. First is the comparison are group of participants who are randomly selected and assigned to experimental and control groups. So you have experimental and you have control groups in the experimental research. So you can compare your controlled experimental and control groups, and also an independent variable which can be transferred to as the experimental variable that can be applied to the experimental group. So you can use both. A dependent variable which can be referred to as the effect or the post-test variable that can be measured in an identical manner for all groups. So that is the dependent and independent variables. So first, you need to identify what are your dependent and independent variables. Okay, the fourth one is for under research methods in quantitative is correlational research. So what do you mean by correlation? Correlational research is used to establish a relationship between two close entities and to determine how one impacts the other. For example, factors affecting the academic performance of the student. So what are the factors affecting and then na po siya academic performance. So you have academic performance. So you have two variables. You need to establish the relationship. For this, a researcher needs at least two separate groups. You have two separate groups. This type of research will recognize trends and patterns in data. But it does not go so far its analysis to observe the different patterns. So, and also, correlational research sometimes considered a type of descriptive research as no variables are manipulated in the study. So no variables are what manipulated in the study. I read some articles in the research design. They use descriptive correlational, and then cause and effect are not the basis of this type of observational research method. The next, the examples of correlational research include the relationship between the types of activities of mathematics, classrooms, and the achievements of students. For example, the classroom, the types of activities, and the achievements of students. The relationship between diet and anxiety. For example, study habits and academic performance. So those are the samples of correlational research. So they have relationship or not. The last one is the causal comparative research. Okay, causal comparative research is employed to conclude the cause and effect equation between two or more variables, where one variable depends on the opposite experimental variable. So, in other words, the other variable cannot stand without the other variable. They are dependent on each other. An independent variable is not manipulated by the experimenter, and the effects of the independent variable is what on dependent variable are measured. This sort of analysis is not restricted to applied mathematics of two variables but extends to analyzing different variables and groups. You can apply also for other variables and groups. The causal comparative research is a method that works on the process of comparison. So you need to compare and contrast your variables. For example, you have dependent and independent variables. So this is for comparison. Okay, once analysis and conclusions are made, deciding about the causes should be done as other different variables. Each far famed and unknown might still have an effect to the other. So for example, this particular variable has an effect to the other variable. So in causal comparative research, so you need to what? You need to work on the process of comparison. You need to compare. So what are those variables, the dependent and independent variables? So you need to compare both. So what are their similarities or differences? Examples of this type of research include the effect of preschool attendance on social maturity at the end of the first grade. So this is an example of what? Casual comparative. The second one is the impact of drugs on a teenager. So what what are the impacts of drugs on a teenager? So that is casual comparative. So you need to compare or you need to do a comparison. So according to Frederick Sanger, scientific research is one of the most exciting and rewarding occupations. According to Dr. Nick Ahmad Nizam, it is important to get results from experiment, but the most important thing is the process in getting that results. That's why we have research methodology. We have methods before we conduct our study. So what are the methods that we're going to use? Either quanti, quali, experimental. So those are the methods that we're going to use, or other methods that we're going to use in our study. So the most important thing is the process or the procedures that we want to follow in what conducting our research. Okay, research is an organized method, yes, because we follow a step-by-step process. You cannot proceed to the next chapter without finishing first the first chapter. Research is an organized method for keeping you reasonably dissatisfied with what you have. So as a researcher, we need to what? We need to ask questions. So if this data are correct or not. And these are my references. So that would be all for my presentation this evening.
Hello, once again. It's a marvelous presentation, Sir Felix. I have a lot to learn about that. My takeaways, I have here a list. My takeaways, qualitative research and quantitative research. What are those? And I have learned that qualitative research has ethnography, narrative, phenomenology, phenomenology. Wow. Grounded theory, and case study explanatory and exploratory. I have also learned that quantitative research has methods of survey, descriptive, experimental, correlational, and casual comparative research. And qualitative and quantitative research. Uh, I like the teaching tonight because I have learned something new, that qualitative research is measured by the quality of something rather than its quantity. And quantitative research is gathering and analyzing numerical data. And it generates knowledge and create understanding about the social world. So, audience, what are your takeaways? I love this topic, Sir Felix. And for me, that's amazingly inspiring. And thank you for giving us your valuable time. This session will be effective for our viewers because you shared your intelligible knowledge with us. And once again, thank you so much, Sir Felix. We
You're
will
welcome.
see you again later on our Q&A. Thank you, Sir Felix. Okay, it's time to move on to our next speaker. But before we move on to our next speaker, once again, I want to remind you all to please support us with your share, tag, comments, and mention your friends. We will give the e-certificate link in the comment box in which you can collect your certificate direct from our website. It's www.eduigp.com, and after collecting your e-certificate, don't forget to celebrate with IGP by checking in. So, without further much ado, our second speaker for tonight. Let's all welcome Dr. Rex A. Lim of the Philippines. And he will be introducing himself. Sir,
Hi,
good
good.
evening.
Yes, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
So clear, so far clear.
Yes, sir. Once again, sir, welcome, and the viewers are yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Let me now share my screen before I'm going to introduce myself. Okay?
Yes,
Okay, for a while. Hmm. Am I now sharing my screen?
yes, sir.
Okay, what about that?
There you go.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. It's
Okay.
clear.
Yeah. Once again, good evening, everybody. I cannot actually see the interface. My once again, my name is Sir Rex from the Philippines. Yeah, as what you can see in the logos, I'm currently connected in Davao City National High School. I'm also a graduate school professor in the University of the Immaculate Conception, and an adjunct college lecturer at Christian Colleges of Southeast Asia. And I'm currently part of the Secretariat of Southeast Asia Research Academy, or the SHARA, and I'm also a peer reviewer of International Journal of Linguistics. And I would like to thank Institute of Global Professionals for this invitation. So my talk this evening, sorry, it's already 9 in the evening here in the Philippines. It's quite evening. I mean late in the night. So my talk this evening revolves around writing review of literature, some trends and techniques. Hopefully I can finish this on time. So, my talk also will specifically include the following: the definition, process, and purpose of literature review. Then, we'll also delve into selecting relevant pieces of literature. Then, maybe you can also talk about very quickly on synthesizing information from relevant literature, then citing related literature using standard style, basically the EPA, then writing a coherent review of literature and evaluating written review of related literature using certain standards. But these are this is just a more or less an hour talk, or maybe less than an hour. So let me begin now my discussion by, of course, going back to the basic, defining what a literature review is. A literature review summarizes and evaluates a body of writings about a specific topic. As what you can see on your screen, I highlighted two key terms. We have summarizes and evaluates. Okay, so meaning to say, when we review literature, we're not simply summarizing, although we are summarizing, but we are also evaluating, we're also critiquing, we're also appraising a body of writings. See, it's a body of writings. It's not just two pieces of literature, three pieces, five pieces, but it is a body of writings, meaning to say it must be a number of literature that you have to review relevant to your topic. So definitely, it's not just a list of information, because it's it because you're making a summary, but you're also making an evaluation of the relevant literature. So I would like to highlight here the three key processes of reviewing literature before the actual process of writing. Okay, these are the prerequisites. We have the three key terms: identification, location, and analysis of material. So, and I would like to make a qualification that this must be a systematic identification, systematic location, and systematic analysis of material before the actual RRL, or review of related literature writing in your manuscript, for example. So, systematic identification, meaning to say, before you're going to go to online databases, for example, ProQuest database, Web of Science database, you should have the idea in mind what to look for. Okay, that's why we have systematic identification. You cannot just go there without anything in mind. You should have able to identify ahead of time the concepts or the variables that you have in your study. Next is systematic location, that after you have identified the relevant materials, you should be able to properly locate them. Like, you're going to put in a folder, maybe in one folder all related materials of a particular variable, then another folder for another variable, or maybe we can make use of reference manager tools, for example Mendeley, in order to facilitate the process of properly sorting your downloaded materials. All right. That's what I mean by systematic location. And the last process is systematic analysis of material. Why systematic analysis of material? Because RRL writing is actually an act of synthesis. Okay, and if you're going to refer that to the cognitive levels of cognitive learning according to Bloom's and Anderson, synthesis is on top of the pyramid, meaning to say it's the highest form of thinking. And so before you can proceed to synthesis, you need to go through first the prerequisites, for example, the evaluation and analysis. That's why I am highlighting here the process of analyzing relevant material before you can write the actual RRL section of your manuscript, for example, because we're talking about here RRL as part and parcel of the paper and not necessarily a methodology. Okay, as a methodology of which you will be sub publishing for a journal, for example, you'll do meta-analysis, meta-synthesis, or scoping technique of existing literature. What I'm presenting now is an RRL writing as part and parcel of a manuscript, since this is very important. Then what's the purpose of reviewing literature? Why do we need to really conduct it? So according to Mertler, we have to go through the following purposes. So for us to be convinced that we really have to do an RRL before we have to implement, okay? Or after we implement our study, to determine what has already been done that relates to your topic. That's very important because we need to know what has already been done so that we cannot duplicate our study. Okay, that's the very purpose why we need to conduct RRL, in order for us to know what has already been done and what has not yet been done. So we know where we can get in, so we know what to contribute, okay, to the body of knowledge. Next is to prevent you from unintentionally duplicating research that has already been conducted. That's what I already told you, for us to avoid duplication. Since duplication is an act of plagiarism, we have to consult existing literature to enable you to acquire a full understanding of your topic. Basically, doing an RRL is one way of making an expert in your methodology, in your problem, okay? In the overall scope of your research, and to provide the rationale for your research problem that's very exact. It's RL section acts like an attorney of your paper. It always justifies why you use certain methods, why you use certain methodology. For example, why you used a phenomenology, why you used structural equation modeling in your quantitative research. It acts as an attorney. That's why it says there to provide the rationale for your research problem. And of course, I highlighted here to identify a space for your own work. Very important that through conducting an RL, we should be able to establish the gap of your research. That's the space I'm referring to, the gap, in order for your study to be novel in nature, in order for your study to be unique in nature, so that you can you have something to contribute, okay, to the body of knowledge, and so that you can join, okay, the conversation of scholars related to your field. That's why. And you can able to properly establish that through reviewing existing literature. It says here, according to Lingard, that we need to make our literature review into a compelling argument rather than a list of facts. Exactly. Okay. Again, it's not a laundry list of information. Your RL section is not a dumping site of information. You have to properly argue, and the existing literature must support, okay, your current argument. According to Mertler, Mertler is a figure in action research. There is no reason to reinvent the wheel when it may not be necessary. Exactly, and it's in fact unethical because reinventing the wheel, meaning it's actually an act of duplication. It's unethical because you're not contributing anything new at all to the body of knowledge if you're simply duplicating. That's why it's an academic misconduct, because for that very reason that you're not contributing at all to the existing pool of knowledge if you're simply duplicating what has already been done in the past. Okay, so if you look at it, this is actually a model that depicts the flow of literature review. So you first have to identify your problem domain. For example, if you're in education, Maybe you can identify on a specific aspect of education, maybe on leadership, maybe on teaching and learning process, and you can still narrow it down. So for your research to become feasible in nature, then you'll have to review relevant literature. Okay, of course, that's why it says relevant, because the literature must be related to your problem, where you can come up with a critical discussion of what has been done. Then, of course, you'll have identification of knowledge gap, since you have already consulted existing literature. So most probably you have you'll be able to identify gaps here, and after that you're going to formulate your objectives, and these objectives must be geared towards addressing the gaps you have in your study. Okay, that's how we can align our review of a literature from the problem domain that we are currently focusing on. That problem domain can actually be translated into our field of specialization, whether we are into language, whether we are into mathematics, for example. Well, it depends. And we have here another model. This is a conceptual representation of the impact of the literature review on objectives, on methods, results, and discussion. As what you can see, there is a direct line from literature review to research objectives. Basically, it influences research objectives, because once you have established the gaps, that the research objectives must be able, okay, to answer or to provide information to answer the gaps. Then it also influences the methodology, the one that I told you, that RRL provides the rationale, okay, in our research. It also influences the results, basically, and it also influences conclusions. And in turn, research objectives influence methodology, methodology influences results, and results a section influences conclusions. So that's how crucial literature review is in the total package of your paper. So when to stop reviewing literature? These are actually just recommendations, since there are no hard rules on this. So according to Mertler, if the answers to all of these questions are yes, then we're good to stop reviewing literature. So the first question is, do you understand the current trends in the field? If you've understood the current trends in your field, then okay, we need to know the trends or the historical context, okay, of your problem, okay, especially in your field. So we'll be able to clearly situate our problem in context. All right. So that's why you need to have a yes answer to the question, do you understand the current trends? What are the current trends? So for your problem to be relevant, do you understand the historical context? So you'll know the development of your problem. So you'll know where to get in. Have you uncovered research that examines both or all sides of the issue? Basically, because as what I already told you, RL reviewing related literature is one way of becoming an expert in our topic or in your problem. That is why it's good to have a yes answer to this question, whether or not you have uncovered research that examines both extremes, okay, of the issue relative to your problem. Next is, do you believe that you have enough information to design a good research project? This is also a good question. You know, existing literature can be used can be benchmarked, okay? In our existing study, how they formulated their research questions, how they undertake their research methodology, what are their methods. We can benchmark existing literature if they're applicable or not. We can actually adopt, okay, for example, existing tools in our own study. We can also observe how they did their study, and you can replicate that to your own study, and later on checking on it whether the methods that they used are also applicable in your own context. So you see, that's how again important reviewing literature is in your study. And we also have here the following concepts that we can stop reviewing literature if you have reached like be if you have included papers beyond 5 year span from the present. But some authors argue that we can extend that up to 10 years. Okay. I'm referring here to empirical papers, those which are currently conducted by scholars or by authors. It must be within 5 to 10 years. Beyond 10 years, it's no longer appropriate to include that journal or article in your paper, considerably because what was true yesterday may not be true today. People change, behaviors change, and definitely findings also change. So that is why we have to consider the timeliness of the related literature. And we also have another concept here, that no formula that relates to the theoretical paper. The older the theory, the better. And if there is a development of the theory, then we can include both the original theory and the development of that theory. So there's no issue as to the theory. Okay, there's no formula for that. But as to the empirical paper, we can follow the rule of thumb of 5 to 10 years, of course, excluding on the so-called landmark papers or seminal papers. As what you can see here, this is actually a meme. There's a man here finally found a relevant paper for his study, but when he found out that it was written in 1962, you look at the man. The man now is sad, because the paper is subject for replication. Okay, it's no longer appropriate. I mean, the findings of the paper written in 1962 are no longer appropriate to be included in your current study. Imagine that was in 1962 and it's now 2021. That's quite not appropriate and weird. Now, what to discuss in literature review is what you can see. We have here a model. We have two circles here. We have the inner circle and the outer circle, or we have like the first tier and the second tier. But of course, we have to prioritize the inner circle. Studies that directly address your own proposed research question, we have to include that. However, if the resources are meager, to support our study. I mean, if the resources which are directly related to our study are meager, then we can proceed to the outer circle, publications that are relevant to or overlap some part of your own question, even though they do not directly address the same point. That's why we have review of related literature and not review of exact literature. So we can always include a literature which are not directly related but can be tweaked later on, okay, depending on the purpose of the study. But in case your problem domain is heavily saturated with literature, meaning to say there are already many existing literature related to that, we have to have parameters in order to narrow down your scope because you cannot simply include all. Okay, you cannot simply include all. So, what are your parameters? You can focus on the leading authorities. It is good idea to respond to what they have to say. For example, if you're studying on maybe on shyness for language learners, so maybe you can just simply include on the papers proposed by or written by, let's say Stephen Krashen. Since Stephen Krashen has like effective filter hypothesis. So Stephen Krashen is really a figure on that. So you can narrow down your focus so as not to include all the papers available in online databases. You can also focus on recent studies from high prestige or high visibility sources. Yeah, if there are already many sources, then you can narrow it down to studies indexed by, for example, Web of Science, Clarivate Analytics, or published by Elsevier or indexed by Scopus, since these are the indexing journals which are considered standard rules in terms of quality journals. And you can also focus on the studies that are most relevant and helpful for your question of interest. That if and only if the research area is already heavily saturated. Okay, so when are we going to conduct literature review? Should it be before the implementation of the research or after the implementation of the research? Well, the argument is prevalent in qualitative literature, but not necessarily on quantitative, because we know that quantitative research is about testing hypotheses, it's about testing theory. So therefore, you really have to have a rigorous literature review prior to the conduct of or prior to the implementation of quantitative research. But for qualitative research, we have somehow a slim demarcation line as to when we're going to conduct a rigorous literature review. So it says here, before asking questions and data collection, that's the first argument, or after data collection and data analysis. Well, here we have an answer according to Creswell. A literature review for phenomenological study, okay, this is for phenomenological study. Literature is reviewed following data collection, meaning rigorous literature review in phenomenological study must take place after data collection or maybe after data analysis, primarily because the very core of phenomenological study is to extract the essences of the lived experiences of the participants, and as much as possible we have to bracket our own biases. We have to bracket our own a priori knowledge. So therefore we have to analyze the data, and we have to make sure that the analysis must stem from the data, and that the ideas must emerge, okay, must emerge from the data that you have. So that is why RRL must be conducted after data collection or after data analysis. Because if you do that ahead of time, there is a tendency that you can somehow pollute the data later on, that you can somehow adulterate the analysis later on. So that's what we're trying to avoid. That's why RRL review must be conducted after data collection or after data analysis. Much more so in grounded theory, because the purpose of grounded theory is concept development. So RRL, a thorough RRL review, must be conducted after concept development. But for ethnographic study, it says there that literature review before data collection. Well, that's very obvious because the core of ethnographic study is immersion. You have to go to the community, you have to live with your participants, your key informants, you have to eat with them, sleep with them, you identify yourself as one of them. So basically you have to know the culture. So there must be a thorough RL before the implementation of an ethnographic study. But when it comes to case study or narrative inquiry, there's no problem with that. You can do either before and after. I mean, you can do RL review both and after the approaches are employed, because it's not too critical, although we have to consider the criticality of the case as well. But generally you can do both, either before and after. But regardless of the design and regardless of the approaches, literature review is an essential, integral, and ongoing part of all research process. So regardless of the research design, okay, and the approaches, whether it's quantity or quality, RL is always there. And what are the requirements? Basically, the technical form of writing, you have to get used to, you have to get yourself acquainted with the technical writing, like the proper capitalization, the punctuation, the choice of words, very specifically, all right? Since you have to learn the language of research, which is far from, writing prose. And it also is demanding time and intellectual effort. You take a look at the process. We have systematic identification, systematic location, and systematic analysis of materials. So basically, you cannot cram the RL. It cannot be done overnight. So it takes time, and definitely it entails intellectual effort. Why intellectual effort? Because it's an act of synthesis, and it's the highest form of thinking. And you cannot do an RL if you have not gone through the prerequisites, the evaluation phase and the analysis phase of the relevant material. So the first thing that you're going to do is to select relevant pieces of literature. You can go to library, yeah, for face to face, basically. But the trend now is to familiarize yourself with online databases. For example, the following, although these are indexing companies, but they can also be databases. For example, Google Scholar, there is a search engine there. You can type in your keywords, your variables, for example, and you'll be able to get relevant literature in Crossref, for example. Also, we have ResearchGate and the rest. So this is what I mean, that Crossref can also be a database. And some of the databases are the following. I'm highlighting this because some of the databases are actually discipline specific, and some also are multidisciplinary um, in nature. I'm sorry, I'm actually watching my. Okay, so you have there, if you're into biomedicine, you can explore on Medline. This is the National Library of Medicine. This is a very good database. If you're into medicine, yeah. If you're into engineering and physics, then you can also explore the Institution of Engineering and Technology. You can just go on. You can just proceed to the website. If you're into like this is multidisciplinary, actually the EBSCO. This is that's the EBSCO is an acronym for Alton Beast Defense Company. This is, yeah, multidisciplinary, and sometimes this is under institutional subscription. Yeah. If you're into economics, we have EconLit. Yeah, that's a very good database for economics. If you're into humanities and social sciences, you can explore Project Muse. Some of the articles or books there are for free. We have also GSTOR, that's Journal Storage, that's multidisciplinary in nature, and the access options. The access option is for free. We have also the directory of open access journals. That's also multidisciplinary. We have Science Direct, of course. It's the product of Elsevier. This is multidisciplinary, and some of the articles here are for free, but generally, the Science Direct is under institutional subscription. We have also for engineering. Okay. You can just explore this database, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. If you're into educational science, you can explore ERIC. All right, Education Resources Information Center. If you're into medicine, biomedical or biological sciences, you can explore PubMed. PubMed is the leading database for medicine and biological sciences. You can also explore Clarivate Analytics. I mean, Web of Science is their database actually. Okay. Um, this is a multidisciplinary in nature, but sad to say it is under institutional subscription. But if you're going to explore their website, you can locate some free articles there. And do not forget the Scopus database. Yeah, this is sad because it is under institutional subscription. But then, if you're going to go to the website, you can find some of free articles which you can explore. So, if you are looking for quality journals, usually the standard, you know, the golden standard is Elsevier, Scopus, is Clarivate Analytics. If the journals are indexed in Scopus, if the journals are indexed by Clarivate Analytics or in Web of Science, the journals have reputation. Okay, the journals have reputation, and it's the journal. I mean, it's being celebrated if we're able to publish in journals indexed by these indexing companies. But if you do not have any, you can of course explore Google Scholar. This is a very nice um, indexing facility as well. It has like customization range, as what I already mentioned, that we can have like 5 to 10 years. So you can just customize the range here. And of course, there's a search engine, there's an automatic citation generator. So everything is in there. But just a word of caution, you have to check on the journals if the journals are of reputation, because if you have your Google Scholar account, you can just simply upload whatever you want there, because there is no like a screening process before you can upload. So because this is the use of Google Scholar and the research kit, for example, is for visibility purposes of your materials. So that's why. But it houses those materials which are already on the net. So you can basically use Google Scholar, but you have to be very cautious on what journals are actually publishing. Okay, that particular articles. All right. In the Philippines, you can, if you do not have any subscriptions to quality journals by your institution, you can just go to the National Library of the Philippines. You can go to this link, and you have to register. Okay, you have to register here. Then you'll be able to access the following databases: EBSCO, for example, Wiley, Emerald, ProQuest. All articles indexed by these databases are of quality. So no sweat. Okay, you have actually no, or you're actually having no problem. If you do not have institutional subscription, just go to the National Library of the Philippines and just to register your account. You just need your email address, of course, and other maybe your number, yeah, and you'll be able to have access on the following e-resources. I hope that helps. And another thing, once you have the next step, once you have already identified your database, okay, the next thing that you need to problematize is on how you're going to retrieve the literature. And the technique is on Boolean operators. All right. Again, we go back to the core processes, systematic identification. Remember that, and systematic location. We're still halfway. Systematic identification of the related materials. So in order to narrow down your searches, you have to make use of the Boolean operators, the or, the and the not. In the representation, as you can see on your screen, the A or B refer to the variables. Like if you have social media and academic performance and you're going to use or, meaning to say you're looking for an article which discusses social media or academic performance, all right? However, if you're going to look for a paper or an article that discusses both social media and academic performance, then you're going to make use of the operator and. All right. However, if you would like to narrow down your search, like you're not actually looking for social media but Facebook use, then you can have Facebook use, not social media, so that you can like filter your searches and you can only get what you want. All right, but you have to make sure that the operators are, I mean, yeah, the operators must be typed in capital letter so that the search engine can detect that you're actually entering a command. Okay, it must be capitalized, the or, the and the not. So for example, during our training with Bowen, this is the research question: does physical exercise increase a university student's ability to learn? Now we need to identify the concepts which need RRL, or review of literature. We have a physical exercise, students and learn. So we have identified already the concepts. The next thing that we're going to do is to look for the synonymous terms. Since I'm telling you this is review of related literature and not review of exact literature. So that's why we have to play with the synonymous terms. So as what you can see, physical exercise, exercise, physical activity. For student, we have undergraduate. For learn, we have cognate or cognition. So why is there an asterisk? That's actually a sort of programming. We're going to make use of asterisk, and that's what we call truncation. If we use truncation, we'll be able to see, I mean, we'll be able to find the variants of this concept. Like if we key in physical exercise, then we'll be able to find in the papers physical exercises, physical exercising, like that. Physical activity, yeah, physical activity, physical activities, like that. Students, undergraduate, undergraduates, learned, learning. We'll be able to find that. Cognitive, cognition. Okay, we'll be able to find them. So that's how we're going to play with the keywords to be typed in the search engine. All right, maybe I have to skip that one. This is also a good point. We are now on systematic location of related materials. Sorry for my background. Our dogs are actually barking. I'm sorry. We have here the various reference manager tools that help you organize your reference material. We have EndNote X9, we have ProSite, Mendeley, and Zotero. And Mendeley is for free. Zotero also is for free. I'm using Mendeley. This is very nice. Mendeley is a product of Elsevier. EndNote X9 is a product of Clarivate Analytics, but this is not for free. ProSite as well is highly commercialized, so we can either use Mendeley or Zotero. These are for free and they are very nice. I cannot do a demonstration now. I cannot do a demonstration now because of limited time. So I'll proceed right away to systematic analysis. Okay, of related material, and as what I have told you, the actual RL writing is an act of synthesis. That's why it says here synthesizes information from relevant literature. But before you can proceed to that, you have to go through first analysis. And we know that when we analyze, we are actually deconstructing the material. We are actually we're actually breaking down complex elements into their understandable form. Okay, so we can understand. So we'll be looking for the essential components in the literature. For example, we'll be looking for the content, yeah, identify the key parts, the abstract, for example, the methodology, of course, the findings, the limitations, the conclusions, of course, and we have to prepare a summary sheet because we need to analyze as what I have told you. We need to break down complex elements. Okay, so we're going to prepare a summary sheet, and the summary sheet should look like this. Okay, these are the information you need from the articles. Maybe you'll be looking for the author, for the methods, for the theories, for the research sample, and so on and so forth. And the first row here is intended for the first article, and the second, the third row here is intended for the second article. Or you can have this kind of format because this one is what's this, horizontal in nature. This one is vertical in nature, but basically they're just similar. Okay, so you can have here in the first column the information that you need, and the rest will be for the individual articles you reviewed in your study. You see that? So for example, I'm going to give an example. For example, you're studying about the use of social media and academic performance. So basically you'll have two variables here: social media and academic performance. You need an RL for social media and also an RL for academic performance. So this is how it looks like. So I'm using the ones vertically oriented. So sources of information. So this is for the first article, second article, third and fourth article. And as what you can see, we'll be able to, we're already deconstructing, right? And by using this matrix method, we'll be able to spot the differences, the similarities, the patterns and trends, for example, of the existing literature. Remember, that's what we need. Okay, that's what we need in order to easily spot the gap. For example, here, um, we're able to find out based on the findings of existing literature that FB is bad for academic performance. Now we know that there is a negative correlation, a relationship between FB use and academic performance, according to John Co, and also according to Kirkster and Karpinski, as what you've seen in your screen. FB users lower GPA. You see that? According to Karpinski and Kirchner, relation between FBUs and GPA. So we'll be able now to like make a conclusion, yeah, or a pattern or a theme that indeed there is a negative correlation or relationship between Facebook use and GPA. And who said that? Of course, according to John Co, according to Karpinski, and according to Kirchner and Karpinski. And this theme now um, can be used as a heading of your RRL section. Okay, as we know that most of our RRL structure now is thematic in nature. Okay, your RL can be structured chronologically, methodologically, or theoretically, but most of the time we do the thematic arrangement of our literature because that's easy. Like we can easily spot whether these themes are actually supporting or actually discussing relevant to our research questions, relevant to the concepts that we have in our paper. All right. So time check is already 9:36 in the Philippines. Well, this is just a representation of a good literature review, that this is your paper, this is your problem, this is your study, and that you need to locate. You need to look for a space where you need to get in. You see that? You need to look for a space where you need to get in, because if you do not have, if you cannot find a space, of if you're merely duplicating, you have nothing to contribute. Okay, in order to join the scholarly conversation, of course, of experts and scholars, you should be able to find the gap and fill in that gap. That's my point. And that's the relevance of RL in the overall conduct and framework of academic research. And your RL section must look like that. That's what you can see. Very coherent, very organized, very illuminating. You know, each main idea is an element of architecture, a shape, a material, or a color. All of the elements should come together to form a coherent look. If your RL section confuses you otherwise, then there's something wrong with your RL, because your RL section must first and foremost demystifying, must be illuminating. You should understand more, okay, about the problem by reading the literature. That's it. Now I'll move very quickly on citing related literature using standard style. Basically, the overall rule or general rule is that you only have to cite what you have read and ideas that you have incorporated into your writing. Okay, only those that you have read, which you need to incorporate in your writing. And you need to cite primary sources when possible and secondary sources sparingly, because secondary sources are simply compendium of existing literature and they're not necessarily conducted primarily by scholars. So you have to cite primary source as much as possible and avoid undercitation and overcitation as much as possible in your RL. Every paragraph should have citation, or else it's just a matter of opinion if there is no citation. All right. So the following are not plagiarism, but a taboo or academic misconduct. Misspelling an author's name is actually academic misconduct because during the publication and during the citation process, for example, and you have misspelled the author's name, it will not be credited to him or to her. It will be credited to somebody else, to somebody else's name who has the kind of spelling, of the name. That's why you have to be very careful on spelling the name. But with the use of Mendeley and Zotero, there's no worry about it. Okay, there's no worry about it, because it manages the in-text citation and the list of references. Forgetting or mistyping an element in reference list entry is also an academic misconduct as much possible. Not as much as possible, but it's really a hard rule that what you have in the text, in the body of the paper, must be traceable to your reference list section. All right. And the third is just a mere repetition. Fabrication as well is an academic misconduct. Yeah. You're like making up citations. It's a no-no. Contract cheating, like you allow others to make that thesis or research paper for you, that's an academic misconduct. And self-plagiarism, definitely. Like you have submitted your paper to one journal and you like do a submission also in another journal. That's a no-no. That's a self-plagiarism. Okay, that's an academic misconduct. So how are we going to write a coherent review of literature? Very quickly, we need to make use of we need to have a balance between continuity and flow with conciseness and clarity. Okay, as much as we would like to write and we need to write our thoughts, we need to be concise, we need to be brief, we need to be direct to the point. Okay, so continuity and flow must be balanced with conciseness and clarity. And in making arguments, these are some of very helpful verbs. Anyway, this is recorded, you can just review the recording. I cannot discuss this one by one, but this is very important. These are the verbs that you need to use in making arguments, I mean in documenting or in making a statement about the making a statement about how the previous authors wrote their paper. Like, are they arguing? Are they refuting? Are they claiming? Are they what? Okay. What do they do in their paper? You cannot just write like Lim 2000 said that. It's a very lame statement. You have to capture my mood. You have to capture my intention of writing the paper. Like Lim 2020 um, argued that, revealed that. Okay. And there are still a lot of words here, reporting verbs here, which are very useful in your paper. I can again discuss that one by one, so you can just go back to the recording and look at that. Time linkers are very important, okay, so that one paragraph flows to another paragraph logically with each other. So transitions are very important so that your paragraphs will not look disjointed, okay, so that your paragraphs will not look disjointed. Transitions must be used effectively. And you have also to avoid wordiness and redundancy. This is quite evident for non-native speakers of the language, Filipinos, for example. Like, we're very wordy, we're just, we tend to like run around the bush. Okay, instead of saying now, we usually say at the present time. That's very conversational. In academic writing, we need to be concise, we need to be direct to the point. So we have to get familiar ourselves with the academic writing. We also need to avoid wordiness and redundancy. Instead of saying I mean, they were both alike. We can omit both because we're alike is sufficient. A sum total, actually, total is sum. Four different groups. Okay, that's why they in group. Maybe because they have salient characteristics. We're exactly the same. We're the same is actually exactly. Absolutely essential. Essential is actually absolutely. Something like that. So we need to avoid redundancy, and the only way to do that is to get yourself be familiar with the language. Okay, you need to get yourself familiar with the language. As to descendants, there's no maximum or minimum length. We just have to make sure that we write direct to the point. So basically, we can make use of the simple sentence, the compound sentence, or complex sentence, but not necessarily the complex. I mean, the compound complex one because it's already loaded with ideas. As to the tone, we need to be straight, we need to be direct and straightforward. Okay, there's no room for idiomatic expressions here. There's no room for metaphorical expressions here. We need to be direct and we need to be straightforward in nature. In terms of tone, we need to be professional. And what qualifies professionalism? Avoid contraction. Okay, because that's very that's highly that's a communicative grammar. Like we say things spontaneously, that's why we contract words like where it's, but in academic writing we have to really spell out everything. And as much as possible we need to avoid jargon. These are, I mean, jargons are terms specific for a particular field of discipline. So we have to avoid that as much as possible because we write basically because we want to inform the people, our stakeholders, for example. We want to communicate ideas. If our manuscripts or research is ununderstandable, or I mean, is incomprehensible, I mean, cannot be understood in the first place because of the complexity of the words, then we defeat the purpose of research in itself. All right, so we have to avoid jargon as much as possible. And of course we need to evaluate a written review of related literature. This is the standard actually, according to Butti and Belly, in evaluating our literature. Maybe I don't need to discuss this one by one. Okay, we just have to look for this and we just have to understand that we review related literature in order to provide, in order to warrant, okay, justification of why we need to conduct our study, why we use certain methodology, why we use this method, and so on and so forth. All right. So your RL tells a story by critically analyzing the literature and arriving at specific conclusions about it. Always remember that your RL is like a story. Okay, you are actually storytelling, and you cannot present an RL which is too good to be true. Meaning to say, you cannot just I mean, you should not just include relevant literature which are supporting your study. You also have to include those existing pieces of literature which counter argue, all right, your findings. After all, you're writing a story. Remember, there must be a climax. There must be a climax. There must be an argument. That's what I'm telling. And your literature must play around, okay, this argument. And before I end, I'd like to stress this one. You cannot cram the RL. Basically, cannot be done overnight. Remember the process: systematic identification of the problem, systematic location of related literature, and systematic analysis of the relevant material before the actual RRL writing of your paper. And let me say this: the quality of your research outputs depends on the quality of your references. So you have to be very careful, and you have to be to be very careful, and you need to have a fine taste, okay, and choose wisely your references if you're going to write, or if you're writing a paper, especially for publication. And thank you very much. Over to you, Nomthel.
Hi, Sir Rex. That was a remarkable literature review. It's a package presentation and have so much takeaways. Like, this is analyzing, synthesizing relevant materials, survey of scholarly sources on a specific topic, the processes like identification, location, analysis of material, its purpose. It provides overview of current knowledge, allowing you to identify relevant theories, methods, and gaps in the existing research. And I also have knowledge on when to stop, restrictions, focus, templates, the structures that enables us to find out what research has already been done and identify what is known unknown within the topic or your topic. So what strikes me the most is that review of related literature is extracting the essence of a data. And with that, Sir Rex, for me, it's timely, useful, and with a vital topic because these are one of the basis of reliable facts. And with the exciting lecture and pointers like the Scopus, Clarivate Analytics, and Google Scholar, and systematic free materials, I am certain our viewers have acquired so much that help them improve their skills. So, sir, with that, thank you very much of your shared precious time with us,
Thank
and we
you.
will see you
Welcome.
again later on our Q&A. Thank you, Sir Rex. So it's time for quiz competition. Everybody, let's get on. Okay, welcome to Slido Quiz. We have here the code IGP Quiz, and the link is in the comment box. So, everybody, let's join at slido.com. I would like also to welcome our participants: Chinalyn Villar Resurrection, Michelle T. De La Cruz, Heidi Bandalao, Carmela Haen, Janet Aguinaldo, Jerilyn Aglibao, Elias Austria, welcome. Angeli Sales, Muhammad Ilyas Kapul, and everybody. Welcome to Slido.com quiz. So, we have here 142 joiners, 150, and keep coming, everybody. Let's join. Renante Flores, welcome. Emily Franhe, Rasty Lopez, Bibet Achuela, Shirley De Gia, Kate Boadilla, Muhammad Salad Abi, Angeli, Michael Davis, Karen Claveria, Joselito Barba. Welcome, welcome everybody. And we have 171 joiners and increasing. So once again, don't forget that the code is hashtag IGP quiz. And our next webinars. Okay, question number one: to determine what has already been done that relates to your topic. To prevent you from unintentionally duplicating research or to comply the standards of academic and scientific paper writing. Okay. We have 72%, but the correct answer is number two: to comply the standards of academic and scientific paper writing. All right, we have second question. What does space mean by the phrase to identify a space for your own work? Gap of the existing study or errors of relevant literature? And 85% answered the correct answer. Leaderboard, Mr. Romel. Which of the following is the most appropriate in writing the RRL? Is it writing an objective identifying the knowledge gap or identification of the problem domain, critical discussion of what has been done, and identifying the knowledge gap, writing an objective? Okay, 55% answered the second, and it is the right answer. Number four question. Which of the Boolean operators that commands the database that any of your search terms can be present in the resulting records? And or. So that 3, 2, 1. Voting is closed. So we have 62% answered the and, but the correct answer is or, and everybody got it in 37%. So, number five question. The Boolean operator that is used to connect various pieces of information to find exactly what you are looking for. Is it and or? So, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Voting is closed. And 94% answered the correct answer. Okay, number six. Is it the method that the researcher adapts for conducting the research studies? Research method or research methodology? So, voting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 closed. All right. 74% answered research methodology, but the correct answer is research method. Okay, number seven. Is it the way in which research problems are solved systematically? Or it is the science of studying how research is conducted scientifically? Is it research method or research methodology? 97% answered research methodology, and that is correct. Number eight, one of the most popular methods of qualitative research involves the researcher embedding himself or herself into the daily life and routine of the subject or subjects. Is it phenomenology or ethnography? All right, the voting is closed. And 56% got the correct answer, ethnography. It starts with a question or collection of data. Through systematic data collection and analysis, repetitive ideas or elements are coded, and codes are grouped or categorized. Is it grounded theory or narrative? Is it grounded theory or narrative? Narrative. 67% answered grounded theory. And that is the correct answer. Number 10. The method is used to gather in depth and detailed information about a subject, which could be any entity, organization, event, or something larger like a country. Is it grounded theory or case study? 97% answered case study, and it is the correct answer. So, who got the top one? The top 10. We have here the top 10. Congratulations to our quiz competition winners. There you go. Once again, congratulations, top 10 winners. We have Jennifer Maula, up to Giovanni, Emily Franche, Carmela Bihaen, Jerilyn Aglibao, Raniel Abrera, and the rest. Congratulations. All right. Okay, guys, participants are requested to put their questions in the comment box. You can address it with the speaker's name. All right, while waiting for the questions, don't forget to comment, share, and tag your community and friends. After Q&A, we will share certification process. So we have here the first question from Mr. Livy Dumaya to speaker number one. Sir, how to triangulate the qualitative research?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So we can triangulate the research question, but um, in our participants and also the experts. So you can ask the experts if our data um, are correct or not.
Okay, sir, thank you for that answer. Second question from Rosebella Malo. Can quality and quant be used in same setting? How to state the title of research standard? What
Actually,
are
we
the
can
steps?
use both. We can use mixed method in our research title. For example, after the interview, so we can do the quantitative research. We can also conduct a survey questionnaire to our participants or respondents. We can do both.
Thank you, sir. Sirs, any suggested research topic about leadership in this time of pandemic?
I guess Rex will answer that question.
Okay, sir. Lyrics.
That's nice, Felix. Okay, any suggested research topic about leadership in this time of pandemic? I'm not into leadership,
Leadership.
so yeah, I'm not into it. But maybe the first thing that you need to do, Sir Jesse, is to really survey existing literature, because sometimes existing literature has that particular portion like a recommendation for future research. Maybe you can begin on that. You can benchmark on that, on the details specified on that article on a particular journal, a research for, maybe topics or research or recommendations or future research is one thing. And the second thing that you can probably do, since I'm not into leadership, so therefore I cannot give you a particular topic. So I'm just giving you suggestions on what you can possibly do. So the next thing that you can probably do is to problematize on your area. Okay, you need to ask yourself, what are the problems that I'm currently facing right now? Maybe as a practitioner in your area, or maybe you can observe around you. What's the current status quo? Okay, of your environment, given your field of expertise, given your field of specialization. Maybe you can start off with that, and maybe you can relate your particular situation to yeah, of course we have here pandemic, so you have to problematize your domain, okay, your area of interest, and that's where you can start off looking for a particular problem. And then after that will be a research. Yeah, we'll have the topic, we'll have the problem, and basically you'll have the research questions, you'll have the title. That's my simple suggestions to you, Sir Jesse.
Thank you, sir. Okay, from Facebook user. Oh, from Mardeles Quahotor to Sir Rex Lim. Can you give a technique to be adapted to minimize plagiarism in a literature review of a thesis?
Wow, this is a very good question, because plagiarism is a perennial problem among scholars. So one thing that you can do, Ma'am Mardelez, is to do the one that I told you, the matrix, and the matrix approach. You have to make a table and provide the information before you're going to write. In a way, you'll be able to write an original paper, because you will be following your write up based on the table. That's one thing. Second thing is you can subject your paper through plagiarism software checkers. For example, Turnitin. Okay, we have PlugScan, and we have actually available commercial plagiarism checking softwares. You can avail on that. Again, they're commercialized, so therefore it's not for free. Okay, but then if you'd like to make your paper, if you'd like to ensure that your paper is not plagiarized, then you have to avail of this plagiarism checker, because sometimes even if we write our paper as much as original as we can, the similarity index sometimes is really high, because that's how it works. It's a robotic way of checking your work with what's already existing. So these plagiarism checkers are really of use when it comes to ensuring an original paper.
So thank you, sir. That is informative. To from Sir Homer Liagas to both speakers. What is the best qualitative research methodology in conducting a research in this time of pandemic? Yes, sir. Sir Felix.
You're muted, Felix, I
You're
guess. You have
muted,
Okay,
no.
sir.
I'm sorry. I guess it depends on the researcher if he or she wants to study in a particular topic. So first, you need to identify what are the problems, existing problems, before you will do the methods. Before using a particular method, so you need to identify first what are the existing problems in that particular topic or area.
Yeah, yes, and that's really true. Best qualitative research methodology in conducting a research in times of pandemic. That's true. He's asking about methodology, so therefore he's asking about the science of approaching research, whether, for example, qualitative or quantitative or specific qualitative methodology like phenomenology. Yeah, Felix is correct. There's no such thing as best, but maybe there are appropriate methods. Okay, which are appropriate in this time of pandemic. For example, we have to maximize the use of online sources, the use of, let's say, Zoom, the use of Google Meet, for example, in conducting interviews. We'll have to do it online because you cannot risk yourselves, going to places, conducting face-to-face interviews. It's very risky. So the best methods, or not necessarily methodology, that you can adopt in this time of pandemic is the use of these online tours. The same thing, you can still get the output that you need, although there are some disadvantages and advantages, but at least you can still pursue your research given the affordances of this technology.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We have here another question from Ms. Abhilasha Sharma. What are the data collection methods in qualitative research?
I guess I only discuss the methods, for example, in ethnography, phenomenological, case study, narrative. So those were the methods in qualitative research.
Thank you, sir. And we have here from Levi Dumaya. To speaker number one, sir, what's the use of FGD?
Okay, the focus group discussion are actually applicable to all qualitative research methods. For example, in ethnography, you can use focus group discussion. In case study, so you can also do that one. I guess it's applicable.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir Rex, you have something? Oh, you have a question, Sir Rex. How many studies should I include in my RRL? Does it have a minimum requirement? What if some articles in the sources have contradicting ideas? Should I consider them? Yes,
Wow,
sir.
this is an excellent question from Facebook user. Why are you no Facebook user? Okay, how many studies should I include in my RL? Actually, it's not on the number of studies, but we have to consider the concept of data saturation. If I've already saturated the information relevant to your topic, that's the time that you're going to stop. However, sometimes our thesis advisor or dissertation advisor requires us to read like 30 articles, like you need to submit 30 pages of an RL, it's not on the number, but our advisor, thesis advisor or dissertation advisor would just like us to exhaust, okay, relevant materials available in the field or available in online databases, because if they'll just tell you to read like 10, to read like 20, then how can you saturate the data? Okay? How can you possibly warrant evidence that indeed your research is worthy of conducting if you're not going to read a lot? Remember, one of the purposes of RRL is for you to become an expert of your study. So you really have to saturate the data. And I cannot say of a number as to how many, but what I would like to say is you have to saturate. When I say saturate, you have to read a lot. Okay, but as of the number, I cannot prescribe. And does it have a minimum requirement? There's no minimum or maximum. Usually it's institutional. And again, the purpose of this number is for us to be triggered to read a lot, for us to become an expert of our own problem. What if some articles in my sources have contradicting ideas? That's a very nice question, Facebook user. Okay. Um Remember I told you that we cannot present an RL which is too good to be true, and that contradicting ideas can be source of your study. Since they are contradicting, now it's your responsibility to settle that contradicting ideas. Okay, you have to propose an argument. What makes these sources contradicting from each other? What's really the real score of this problem? It's a very nice point, Mr. Facebook user, whoever you are, to settle or to solve these contradicting ideas. You are actually, if you're able to study, okay, solving these contradicting ideas available in your domain, in your field of specialization, you are making a breakthrough. You are contributing to the body of knowledge theoretically and practically. Should I consider them? Basically, that's a source of your study that can actually be a gap of your own research if there are contradicting ideas.
So, another question from Sir Mohammed Salad. Speaker number one, does the quantitative descriptive use both descriptive and analysis? Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the quantitative descriptive use, both descriptive and yes, I guess.
Okay, thank you, sir. From Suda Nair, speaker number two, Sir Rex, any free software to check plagiarism or for research paper before publication?
Yeah, thank you, Suda, for the question. As far as my knowledge is concerned, there is no free plagiarism checker. It cannot out to me maybe because there is no free because these owners of plagiarism checkers have also to update their database. You know, and these databases are not for free. That's you really have to pay for it to maintain as well the databases. So as far as my knowledge is concerned, there is no free software to check plagiarism. Although we have in the black market, like we can purchase a very, you know, cheap amount for example, turn it in. That actually works. It actually works. But as to the word free, as in free, I cannot think of any software which is totally free.
Okay, thank you,
Actually,
sir.
only in grammar we have free software in grammar, but not in plagiarism.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that addition. We have here another question from Miss Catherine Kaimbe. The speaker number two, sir. In a research proposal, RRL is included. You mentioned that RRL should be done after data collection. May I know how to carry out a proposal without RRL? Thank you.
Okay, that's yeah, this a very nice question. Thank you, Ma'am Catherine. Let me read again. You mentioned that RL should be done after data collection. Referring to, for example, a phenomenological study and grounded theory. I'm actually saying thorough literature review must be conducted after data collection and data analysis. Meaning to say, in your proposal, you should have your RL, but not as thorough after your data analysis or after concept development. You should always have the RL because it's an integral part of all academic papers. But as to the like the the what's this the level of completeness the yeah the level of completeness as to how extensive you do your RL for phenomenology and for grounded theory, it must be done after concept development. But in the proposal, you must have, but not as thorough after you do your data analysis in phenomenological study and grounded theory only.
Okay, sir, thank you. From Rolando Reyes to Dr. Rex, is there such a thing as it starts from international, national, and local sources for our RRL? Or regardless of these levels, so long they are substantial to the studies?
Yes, this is a very nice question. Hi, Sir Rolando. Yeah, I can understand that because sometimes our advisors maybe or teachers maybe are telling us, okay, you have to write your introduction and you should have the international, blah, 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 the national and local. Actually, the purpose of that, actually, they're correct. Because the very purpose of why they're telling you to include international, national, and local studies is to situate your problem in different contexts. And it's very important. You need to situate your problem in in international context, in national context and local context in order for you to convince the reader that this problem is indeed urgent to be conducted because this is prevalent not only in my locality but also in other areas, okay, in international, in national and local scenario. Basically, there's no such formulation as that, but then but you have to properly situate, okay, your problem in different contexts. But in case you cannot situate your problem in an international context, well, no problem. For as long as there are related literature, pieces of literature, maybe in a national context, maybe in local context, yeah, it's all right. There's no problem with that. What is important to exhaust the literature and you're able to situate your problem in different contexts, well, that's good to go. That's good to go.
Thank you, sir. That's another vital point. So, thank you for our two speakers, sir, tonight. We would like to, I would like to thank you all also for our viewers for attending today's session. We are confident and positive that you learned something from both our speakers and you will be grasping and applying it to enrich your career growth or your life. And with that, once again, sirs, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, at this point, we have here double bonus with regular webinar. Along with our regular webinars, we have also added webinars on every weekend, Sunday morning, month of September. September morning sessions dates, we have September 19th, September 26th at 9:30 a.m. PST. Triple bonus! From October, we will start webinar series program. You will get individual certificate for each webinar, and after submitting all certificates, you will receive a webinar series certificate. It is highly focused on teaching strategies, research, assessment, pedagogy, tools and techniques, professional development, and communication skills. So, guys, go to www.eduigp.com now. So, our first webinar series program, we have 5 parts webinar series, topic authentic assessment in teaching and learning. Part 1 on October 1, Part 2 October 4, Part 3 October 7, Part 4 October 10, Part 5 October 26. Okay, don't forget to check in with www.igp.com, eduigp.com. You can enroll with our website, our second webinar series program. We have 4 parts webinar series also. The topic is teaching English as a foreign language and assessment. Part 1 on October 2, Part 2 on October 6, Part 3 on October 20, and Part 4 October 24. All right, our third webinar series program. We have 5 parts webinar series. This is the third. The topic is digital classroom engagement tools. Part 1 on October 11, Part 2 October 12, Part 3 October 13, Part 4 October 14, Part 5 October 15. And we have here an announcement about diploma certificate announcement. After checking your activity and your submitted certificates, dear viewers, if you qualified, we will upload your diploma certificate in our website. You have to download it from our website. That is www.eduigp.com. And we started uploading from September the 30th. Check it out. So we have here our diploma certificates. The sample on what you will see on our website. You have to click on Diploma Certificate of the Institute of Global Professionals website, and then you will be greeted good day. Sorry for the delay. Starting from September 13th, we will upload diploma certificates on this website and we will upload it gradually. So please check until you receive yours. https double hashtag eduigp.com. And we have here a sample copy. And we started uploading. Now you can download and also share it. So, guys, what are you waiting for? Visit the www.eduigp.com. You can download it. So, IGP certificate, September 13. We have here the most awaited part, today's program on certification claiming, research methodology, and literature review. Step 2, certification link. Click the certification link that is now available in comment box and pinned comment. Certification link will be available always in this program, and it is posted through Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube, and description. So guys, check it out. Certification process is that you can claim your certificate in two ways. We have a direct link from comment box, that is a pinned comment or post description, or if you're not able to click this link, please directly browse www.eduigp.com for all information. Together, find today's program. Then the process are the same. And step 3, browse www.eduigp.com or the given link, and you will be redirected in this page of our website as shown. You can, that is also the YouTube link. You can find it there also. And you will click the enroll now. You encode the code. But if you are new, create your account. If you have an account, then log in directly. After that, find the seminar title and get enrolled. So we have here instructions. The certificate code required for today. We have here the code IGP 1515. Without code, no one is eligible for certificates. And with code, you can claim your certificates anytime. So you should screenshot or take note of the code so that you can claim your e-certificates anytime. Okay, dear listeners, we also already posted today's quiz competition certificates of our top 10. And when you get your e-certificate, celebrate with IGP. Don't forget to check in on IGP page while celebrating. And this is the code for tonight. IGP 1515. With code, click Get Your Certificate. Enter the certificate code required, which is IGP 1515, and get your certificate. So, your certificate is ready. And this is the step 6. And you can see it that it is a verified certificate. So our next webinar, evening session, we have the importance of health and wellness on tomorrow, September 14, 2021. We have a speaker from Nigeria, India, and United Kingdom. Evening session on September 15, 21st skills in education and integration of technology. We have 3 speakers from Albania. All Right. On evening session also on September 16th, entitled The Power of Women Leaders. We have United Arab Emirates speaker, Puerto Rico, and South Africa. All right. We have also evening session on September 17, 2021. The financial education. Three speakers from the Philippines. They will talk about investment strategies, financial literacy, and financial planning. That is on September 17th. Evening session also on September 18, 2021, entitled The Power of Positive Thinking. We have one from India, South Africa, and Mexico speaker. Okay. Morning session. The IGP's 188th morning session, upcoming webinar on September 19th, entitled Interactive Learning Strategies in Education. We have three speakers from the Philippines. Upcoming webinar. Evening session on September 19, we have psychosocial issues of students. We have two speakers from India and one from Australia. Okay, guys, you can take note to be enrolled later. And we also have upcoming webinar on September 20th, evening session entitled Skills Not Degrees, The Future of Employment Globally. September 20. We have a speaker from Nigeria and India. That is Awal Ahmed Ibrahim and Dr. Amit Amit. Okay, September 21 evening session. We have e-grade book for teachers. We have four speakers from the Philippines. Also, an evening session on September 22, doing business and training in the online world. We have a speaker from Australia, Spain, and South Africa. Okay, IGP's evening session also in September 24. We have character formation and educational leadership. We have two speakers from the Philippines. IGP's evening session, upcoming webinar on September 25, learning across areas of math, social studies, and assessment. We have three speakers from the Philippines. And a morning session, the 195th morning session of IGP, upcoming webinar, September 26, Learners' Mental Health. We have two speakers from United States. On evening session of September 26, the value of enterprise and entrepreneurship education. We have two speakers from South Africa and one from Scotland. Evening session also of the IGP upcoming webinar, September 27. That is English literature and psychology role in education. We have two speakers from the Philippines. All right. An evening session also on September 28. innovative teaching strategies amidst pandemic. So, two speakers from the Philippines. Evening session also, upcoming webinar of IGP on September 29, entitled Communication Skills in Teaching and Learning Process. We have one from Vietnam, one from India, and one from Greece. Three speakers. Upcoming webinar of IGP evening session, September 30, that is Healthy Living Equals Successful Living. We have a speaker from the United States, two speakers from the Philippines, and one from India. Okay, book your seat now on www.eduigp.com evening session, upcoming webinar on October 1. That is Authentic Assessment in Teaching and Learning, Part 1. One speaker from Indonesia and one from Philippines. IGP upcoming webinar on October 2, the 202 session, evening session. That is Teaching English as a Foreign Language and Assessment Part 1. We have two speakers from Indonesia. A morning session, 203rd upcoming webinar of the IGP on October 3. That is Acing the New Normal Education. Three speakers from the Philippines. Alright, an evening session also on October 3. That is Disaster Preparedness and Climate Change Adaptation. We have three speakers from the Philippines. Also, we have an IGP upcoming webinar on October 4 evening session, that is Authentic Assessment in Teaching and Learning Part 2. That is on October 4, and we have a speaker from Indonesia and one from Bangladesh. October 4. On October 5, evening session entitled Competency Based Teaching. October 5, we have a speaker from the Philippines and one from India. Upcoming webinar series, we have here an evening session on October 6, that is Teaching English as a Foreign Language and Assessment Part 2. We have two speakers from Indonesia. Also, a webinar series on October 7, evening session. That is Authentic Assessment in Teaching and Learning, Part 3. We have a speaker from Indonesia and India. And our 209th upcoming webinar on October 8, we have Strategies in Competent-Based Curriculum. We have three speakers from the Philippines. Also, we have an evening session on October 9. It is the implications of theories of reading to the teaching of reading. Wow! With Mr. Junior Dicena of Philippines, October 9. The 211th morning session, upcoming webinar, IGP on October 10, that is Bringing Character Education in the Classroom. We have two speakers from the Philippines. Alright, upcoming webinar of IGP evening session on October 10, webinar series 1, that is Authentic Assessment in Teaching and Learning, Part 4. We have two speakers from Indonesia. The IGP's evening session On October 11, webinar series 3, that is digital classroom engagement tools with Ed Puzzle. Looking forward to it with one speaker from the Philippines. That is an evening session also of IGP's upcoming webinar series 3, entitled Digital Classroom Engagement Tools with Kotobi. One speaker from the Philippines. That is October 12th. Excited about this. Webinar Series 3 also on October 13, evening session with one speaker from the Philippines, entitled Digital Classroom Engagement Tools with Google Sites. October 14, webinar series 3, evening session. Also, we have digital classroom engagement tools with Wakelet. One speaker from the Philippines also. And on the October 15 evening session, we have digital classroom engagement tools overview. We have three speakers from the Philippines, webinar series 3. 222 upcoming webinar series of the IGP evening session on October 20. We have here Teaching English as a Foreign Language and Assessment Part 3, October 20, and we have two speakers from Indonesia. On October 22, we have Mastery in Public Speaking evening session with Mr. Feroz Akbarov of Uzbekistan. Upcoming webinar on October 24. Morning session, 226th morning session of IGP. We have 21st Century Teaching and Learning Demystified. We have two speakers from Indonesia. Upcoming webinar also on October 24. Evening session, webinar series 2. We have Teaching Language as a Foreign Language and Assessment Part 4. We have two speakers from Indonesia. Also, an evening session, upcoming webinar on October 25, the process of be a vet trainer. One speaker from the Philippines, Mr. De Guzman. On our upcoming webinar series on October 26th evening session, we have Authentic Assessment in Teaching and Learning Part 5 of the webinar series 1. October 26th, two speakers. We have also evening session upcoming webinar on October 28th. One speaker from the Philippines, International Political Economy. Okay, upcoming webinar, October 30, evening session of IGP, different teaching modality, two speakers from India. All right, we have a lot of webinar series. So, dear learners, visit www.eduigp.com. Once again, this is the certificate code of tonight, today, code IGP 1515. Today's program name is Research Methodology and Literature Review. Without code, no one is eligible for certificates. And with code, you can claim your certificates anytime. So please note, screenshot, or take note the code and today's program name. All right. Again, don't forget to collect your e-certificates and give a check-in with IGP. Celebrate with IGP by the link mentioned below and on our website, www.eduigp.com. Spread the information with your friends and community. We hope to see you all again in the upcoming webinar. Until then, thank you. Let's face this pandemic with positivity by nourishing our skills at home with the Institute of Global Professionals. So, I am your host, Miss Stell, saying stay joyful, stay safe. Signing out. Thank you for being with us.